All right. How's everybody doing today? We got a really fun topic today that I get asked on a very frequent basis because of the nature of my job. Being a chiropractor that chooses to work within the sports and injury world, I see some things that we don't usually see quite as often in the regular chiropractic world. My practice is somewhat of a blend between chiropractic, physical therapy, massage therapy. There's kind of a hodgepodge of all of it. And so what we're going to go through today is kind of a smattering of what's safe. I am very, I guess you can see that I am very entrenched in the CrossFit world. And so I wanted to kind of give some intro on why I wanted to do this topic. This topic is very near and dear to my heart, and unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I wanted to reach out and kind of dispel some of those rumors, but also kind of give some of the things we do have to watch out for. Every activity has its problems. Every activity has its risk. So we have to make 100% certain that we're taking care of ourselves and doing what needs to happen to keep ourselves healthy. So to get into that, we have to kind of start off with why I wanted to do this. Being a chiropractor, obviously I love trying to help people as much as I can, especially in soft tissue and sports injury world. And I love CrossFit. A year ago, if you look at this guy right here on the left side, obviously I did not love CrossFit. This was just a little bit short of my heaviest weight. This was around 300 pounds. I did get up to 310 at one point. We have a family history of diabetes. We have a family history of heart disease, cholesterol issues, all kinds of stuff in my family. And I saw this as a way of, I'm going down a bad road, and unfortunately I'm going to be taking some time away from my girls that I don't want to see. This one right next to it was during the Open this year, so I'm actually a little lighter than this picture now. And so obviously I'm kind of a testament on that does it work? Heck yeah, it does. Any exercise that you commit to on a daily basis, and you get your diet under control will work. I've chosen to kind of get into the CrossFit world. This right here is the reason that I started CrossFit and diet. That redhead there is my lovely wife, Macy, and then our two little girls, Riley and Kaysen. I was seeing a very scary road that was telling me that I was going to be stealing time away from them because I was valuing Snickers over time with my family. And that was a very harsh realization. It was a very painful realization. But luckily, I had some amazing people in my community that sometimes quietly prodded and sometimes not so quietly prodded. One of them is my business partner, Kristen Tucker. They urged me to get into the gym and live what I was preaching. And so this was right around that same time of being the heaviest. Those two girls right there, probably the biggest reason that I did anything. And one of the reasons I get to talk about this topic today. I lived and breathed this little cartoon. I was retaining food beyond all belief. When I went back and tracked my food in my Fitness Pal before I started all this, it was I was eating around 4,500 calories a day, and about 70% of it was carb. And so just kind of give you an idea where we're coming from. And this was a couple months ago. So obviously this stuff does work. That's really not very. That's not usually one that is dispelled. That's usually not one that people fight against. They just talk about safety of it. So that's what we're going to get into here today. All right. So I wanted to address some of the misconceptions. So with some of the misconceptions that we have, the number one is, well, if you're going to do CrossFit, you're going to get hurt. Same thing with high intensity interval exercise. I want to throw out this idea of the fact that if you do anything long enough, if you do anything training specifically long enough, what are your odds of injury? I'm going to tell you that it's pretty dadgum high. Anything that you do on a routine and current basis is likely to cause an injury at some point. Now, the levels vary, the amount of intensity vary, the type of treatment you need may vary. And so this is what we have to pay attention to. in CrossFit, from what I've seen, and the same thing with the other high intensity interval exercise, I'm gonna go ahead and just lump it all together. So when I say CrossFit, I'm lumping high intensity interval in there as well, boot camp as well, all those kind of things, probably Olympic weightlifting, and the movements are all very similar. And so we usually see two types of injury. We will see something with an acute strain. So you grab a weight, you pull a shoulder, you pull a rotator cuff muscle, not necessarily a full tear or something like that, just a strain. Or you see a chronic wear and tear due to bad form. Let's go ahead and address the acute strain first. Those are going to happen almost, like I said, across the board in any sport. You're playing soccer, you make a cut, your knee buckles a little bit, you strain a quad, you strain a hamstring. You're taking off running in football, you pull a hamstring. I would lump in ankle sprains and things like that into that nature as well. Those are inevitable. Those are things that we can try to train away from, and we can try to build strength on, and we can help prevent a vast number of them. But sometimes they're just bad luck, and sometimes it's faulty form under fatigue, which happens in every single sport. The one that we're going to address the most today, though, is chronic wear due to bad form. This is the biggest knock against CrossFit and their high-intensity exercise, because it's, oh my goodness, did you see their squat? Did you see those pull-ups? What are those? Flailing around like a monkey on a bar. While those have a place, kipping pull-ups and butterfly pull-ups have a place for metabolic conditioning, it's we have to pay attention to what is the goal. Okay, and so with the chronic wear due to bad form, that's where I come in. That's where coaching comes in. A good gym of any kind is going to have a coach that's paying attention to you, that is watching and making sure that you are not going outside of the level that you can physically handle. Okay, if I have somebody new come into the gym and I say, here, load 250 pounds on that bar, let's go ahead and clean it. First thing a new person can probably do is, where's the Windex? But after that, when I show them what clean is, they're going to say, no. And with that same person, if I loaded 135 pounds on the bar, that's probably going to be too much. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that we are, in CrossFit they call it on-ramp or foundations classes or whatever you want to call it. But we have to make sure that we're building that foundation for people so that they're able to move appropriately, keeping those knees in good tracked positions. And these are a big one that we see because of faulty squat positions. Making sure that the pelvic girdle and the hips are strong enough to support weight. Making sure that chest position is good, so we're not overloading the shoulder girdle or overloading the neck. Each of these things are every bit as important. So what we have to do is make sure that every single thing is being watched on a daily basis. This is where CrossFit really does shine, because you may have a class of 10 people, but you have a coach watching all 10 people. So if somebody is paying attention, they are doing their job as a coach, you're going to see people actually having a less injury rate. And we're going to go into that here in just a minute. So some of the studies, we're going to go through two here. One of them actually references the other. If you'll notice this one here that I have open, this is a overarching research study, and it's Dr. Robert O. He is a sports med physician, and he did kind of an overarching glance at all of the studies that are out there. He went through 3 different studies. The first one was a kind of cool one. It looked at the U.S. Army and their brigade combat team. If you look right through here, they put half of their participants through HIIT training and the other half non-HIIT training. Okay. The funny thing was, after the study was done, there was a very, very, very slight, I mean, we're talking 2% decrease in the injury in the HIIT group. Okay, so what does that tell us? Worst case scenario, no different. Best case scenario, slightly better. All right, so this is just one study. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next one. The next one was a cross-section study of CrossFit affiliates, and it said that 19.4% of athletes suffered an injury over a defined period of 6 months, usually low back, shoulder, and knee. Okay, this was self-reported, and as with the third study, they did not ask the follow-up question, was it bad enough to seek care? So they lumped in a mildly strained calf that took 1 day to calm down in with a torn rotator cuff. So that is one thing that I would really like to see in these studies is, let's say, okay, how many of you had an injury in this period? And then number two, who actually had to go get treated? Because that number is going to likely be significantly smaller. I will tell you this, coming from the healthcare side within CrossFit, with my athletes that I work with athletes of all sports. My CrossFitters are generally the ones that come in sooner because they don't want to miss time from the gym. They don't want to do that. So they actually will come in for some of those smaller things that other sports will kind of let hang. Obviously, this is a global statement, but just in my practice, it's what I've seen. Maybe it's just the education of the boxes that I work with. Maybe it's me hammering it into their heads. The faster I can get into something, the better they're going to be. I don't know, but all I know is they're generally the ones that are there faster, and they're also the ones that are healing faster because they're doing the work. And so another study that we looked at showed they looked at the 4 most common types of exercise that someone who is trying to get fit is going to do. So they said bodybuilding type exercise, powerlifting, CrossFit, and running. I'm just going to give you a second, just think about, okay, so if you look at the injury rates of those 4, which one is going to be the most injury prone in your mind? Okay, you got a second. The most common injury prone exercise that required treatment was running. Second was powerlifting. Third was CrossFit. And fourth was bodybuilding. They attributed bodybuilding one because it's due to hypertrophy, and they were more likely to stop before any kind of high intensity kicked in and made the injury worse. But so when we're looking at these issues of CrossFitters get hurt, the research just isn't showing that. So let's go ahead and dive into the actual injury rates. These injury rates have been pulled across a wide range of studies that have been clinically documented over several decades. So basketball ranges from 1.94 to 5.7 injuries per 1,000 hours done. It's a wide range, but at least gives you an idea. So let's average it out to 4, 3, 3.5. Tennis, 2 to 20. That's because of the 2 is recreational. The 20 is usually the more competitive, where you're seeing ankle sprains and hamstrings and things like that. CrossFit, 3.1 per 1,000 hours. This is the one that they did the most work on, which is directly correlated to Olympic weightlifting, directly correlated to powerlifting. And if you average out running, it is less than running here as well. Significantly less than gymnastics, significantly less than football, significantly less than soccer. So once again, the research is just not holding up to this, okay? So we're making sure, let me go ahead and close that out. We just want to make sure we're getting good information out here to people, because if we're not, there's just some rumors that need to be dispelled. Let's take a look here. So this is the other study, and this goes back into the things we talked about earlier. If you want to look it up, this is the overarching study. Are injuries more common with CrossFit training than other forms of exercise? It was in the Journal of Sport Rehabilitation in 2018. So this is a new study, and everything completely echoes the article that I just referenced with Dr. O. So the other stuff that we're going to talk about, I'm going to go ahead and leave this up just because I really like those numbers, and they give me some hope for what we're doing. The other thing, so there's the big joke about Pukey the Clown and rhabdomyolysis. If you aren't familiar with what rhabdomyolysis is, it's a rapid breakdown of muscle tissue, and it floods those byproducts into the bloodstream, and it places a huge load on the kidneys. Okay, this is the one where you hear people ending up in the hospital on dialysis, having major issues. It shows up with a triad of a few things, usually pain in the shoulders, thigh, or low back, weakness, and discolored or absence of urine. Okay, urine is usually orange, red, or brown, or some combination of all of them. The thing we have to keep in mind, the reason that rhabdo occurs is usually a combination of factors. Extreme muscle strain is usually one of them, but it's usually not the only factor. Extreme muscle strain usually shows up as injury, not as rhabdo. It's usually coupled with dehydration, improper nutrition, usually not eating enough. We see this a lot in people who are trying to kickstart a rapid weight loss program, and they're saying, oh, if I get down to 1,000 calories a day, look what happens. I lose weight. And then I'm going to do this high intensity interval exercise. The body's not able to rebuild the musculature good enough, and you begin to break down products in the bloodstream, and hey, you're in the hospital. High body temperature, so if you're fighting fever, you're hiding that, or if you just hit too hard on the exercise, alcohol use will actually increase the risk of this. Another thing is usually repetitive. Okay, it's not usually due to a one-time event. It's usually due to repetitive stress. So when we bring somebody into the gym and we're trying to help them get into it, it's usually not one of the things where we say, all right, you're coming 6 days a week. We're trying to build them in. We're trying to give them things they can succeed at. So we're giving them air squats. We're giving them training bar push presses. We're giving them things that they can feel a sense of accomplishment, because they know I'm going to get stronger, but I'm also going to be, I'm also being safe, and I'm taking care of my body. All right. So in a nutshell, all exercise has its potential problems. Every single thing. However, in a good CrossFit box, a well-run boot camp, any of those kind of things, your coaches are paying very close attention, and in all honesty, more likely they're saying that they're paying closer attention than some of the other bigger mainstream sports, because that's their job, is focusing on the technique and on the form. Now, if that's not happening, that's an issue. That's definitely an issue, and it needs to be brought to the attention of the coach, or the box owner, or the gym owner, or whoever, because we want to make sure that you are getting not only the workout that you're looking for, but you're getting the care and the instruction that you need to really be successful and to stay injury free. So going back onto this on my side, what can a chiropractor do? We just pop your back, right? I'm really glad that that's not true, because my life would get incredibly boring every single day if all I did was lay people down, crack their back, and send them on their way. My days are spent a little bit different. What I try to do is make sure that we go through and find the fault points before they happen. So on every patient, we do a full functional evaluation. We do squat assessments, we do lunge assessments, we do range of motions, we do some overhead pressing, we do a whole wide array of movement assessments to figure out where are you likely to break, where are you likely to show a weakness. All right, so we'll do muscle testing as well to find that. Once we find that, we have to ask the question, is this a mobility or a stability problem? Greg Cook talks about this a ton. You cannot fix a mobility problem with stability, and you cannot fix a stability problem with mobility. Okay, so you have to pair the right treatment with each right injury. And so when we go through that, that's where I spend my time, is trying to figure out, do I need to mobilize this person? Do I need to build more motion in their hip? Or do I need to stabilize the pelvis and the glutes and make sure that they're able to sit into that squat appropriately and take stress off of the knees? Okay, so this kind of stuff, one of the things that I do in my office is I offer movement scans, and we go through, and somebody can come in and say, hey, I need you to look at me. And we take a look through a lot of the foundational CrossFit movements. We have them do med ball cleans and overhead squats and all that kind of stuff. But it's body weight, PVC pipe, maybe, a 6-pound med ball. And we can see where those breakdowns occur. And by doing that, I can give them a rehabilitation program that they can get started on at home, so that they can begin building that strength and be better, they can be stronger, and they can be less injury prone. I've said this before, and I'm going to continue to say it to everybody. The quickest way to an injury in any sport is having ego. Okay? Check at the door. If you don't check that ego at the door, you are asking for something bad to happen. Okay? I love the sport of CrossFit, and that is one thing that I totally blew over, and we're going to talk about real quick. The largest misconception of CrossFit is what people see on TV is what I'm doing at the gym. While some of the movements may be technically the same, comparing the CrossFit Games or even CrossFit Regionals to what I'm doing as a scaled athlete in the gym is like comparing Pee Wee football and the NFL. Is it technically the same sport? Yeah, it is, pretty much. Is it really the same sport? Not even close. Not even a little bit. We have to make sure that people understand I'm not going to throw them into something that they're not ready for. I'm not going to throw them into something where I say, okay, it's 5x5 back squats at 1.5 times body weight. Go. Unfortunately, I've seen that a little bit, and it doesn't end well. But that's one thing we have to make sure from the doctor's side, and then also from the gym side. You have to make sure that everyone is getting the care that they deserve. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw that on there. Let me see here. Let's pull it up. We really just want to make 100% certain that people are getting every bit of what CrossFit is meant to be. CrossFit is meant to be constantly varied for a reason. It is meant to be functional. It is meant to make you better at life, okay? Very few other places can actually say that that happens, okay? So if y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to PM me or write a message underneath this video. If you want a copy of this research, you can do the same thing. Reach out to me and I'll email it over to you. But love talking to you guys. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Y'all have a great one.